In many ancient spiritual and esoteric traditions, there exists a deep mystical understanding of human anatomy, consciousness, and the energy pathways that shape our experience of reality. These teachings, often passed down through sacred texts and hidden knowledge, emphasize the presence of an incredible force within each person, a primal energy that lies dormant until awakened. This energy, often symbolized as a coiled serpent, is said to reside at the base of the spine and holds the potential to transform the individual on every level, physically, mentally, and spiritually. The symbolism of the number 33 is significant in this context, particularly in relation to the 33 vertebrae in the human spine. The spine is not merely a structural part of the body, but is seen as the conduit through which this divine energy travels. It is interesting to note that there are exactly 33 vertebrae in the human spine, and there were 33 years in the life of Jesus Christ, a number that has been regarded with deep reverence across various spiritual traditions. The link between these two, the 33 vertebrae and the life of Christ, suggests a profound connection between human physiology and the divine, illustrating that the journey of spiritual enlightenment mirrors the physical ascension of energy within the body. Within this framework, the medulla oblongata, a part of the brainstem, plays a crucial role in this sacred process. The medulla, resembling the shape of the Ark of the Covenant, is often considered the repository of this divine energy. The Ark itself is a symbol of divine protection and the sacred mysteries, and its angelic wings symbolize transcendence and the journey to higher states of being. Just as the Ark carried sacred relics, the medulla is thought to carry the spiritual energy that will guide the seeker through their transformation. The energy from the medulla then travels down the spine to the sacrum, which represents the physical descent of spirit into material form, the embodiment of Christ's journey into human existence. This journey is not a one-time event, but a cyclical process, an ongoing dance of descent and ascent. After reaching the sacrum, this energy rises again, making its way back up the spine to the brain, symbolizing the return of the spirit to its divine source. This cyclical pattern mirrors the concept of resurrection, an awakening that brings about spiritual rebirth. In various mythologies and traditions, this ascension is depicted as a return to a higher state of being, a reunion with the divine essence that resides within every individual. It is the story of the soul's journey back to heaven, just as Christ's resurrection marked the ascension back to the divine realm. The symbolism of the energy's ascent through the spine and its eventual return to the brain also ties into the myth of Santa Claus. While many might see the figure of Santa as a whimsical character, there are deeper spiritual meanings embedded in his actions. The notion of Santa coming down the chimney is a representation of this energy descending into the body. The chimney itself could be seen as a metaphor for the claustrum, a small structure in the brain that plays a role in the movement of this sacred fluid or substance. The movement of energy through this channel could be thought of as Santa's route, a way of delivering spiritual gifts, the awakening of consciousness and the realization of our divine nature. When this energy is awakened, it rises through the spinal column, passing through the chakras, each of which represents different levels of consciousness and spiritual insight. As the energy ascends, it activates different parts of the body and mind, culminating in the opening of the third eye, often associated with the pineal gland. This activation is seen as the ultimate enlightenment, the opening of higher perception, the awakening to the true nature of the self and the universe. The pineal gland, often referred to as the seat of the soul, is thought to be the center of spiritual awareness, and its activation is said to bring clarity, heightened intuition, and a deeper connection to the divine. The concept of spiritual awakening, therefore, is not just an abstract philosophical idea, but is intricately tied to the very structure of the human body. The sacred journey of enlightenment is one of rising consciousness, where the primal energy stored within the body rises up, unlocking potential and leading to a profound transformation. This energy, once awakened, brings the individual closer to the divine and to a higher state of awareness, allowing them to experience the world from a place of deeper understanding and connection to all that is. In ancient Indian spiritual traditions, there exists a profound concept known as Kundalini, often referred to as the coiled one. This term metaphorically represents a dormant spiritual energy that lies at the base of the spine, awaiting activation. Kundalini is said to be a powerful, transformative force that, when awakened, rises through the body's energy channels, or chakras, leading to higher states of awareness and enlightenment. This concept, though deeply rooted in Eastern spiritual practices, resonates with ideas that can be found in other religious and mystical traditions across the world. In Gnostic Christianity, for example, a similar process is referred to as raising the chrism, with the chrism being the sacred cerebral spinal fluid produced in the brain. This process, much like the concept of Kundalini, involves the ascension of spiritual energy, believed to carry an individual into higher states of consciousness. The body, particularly the spine, is seen in many spiritual teachings as a sacred conduit through which this energy must travel to unlock one's full potential. The spine itself is often described in yogic terms as the spiritual spine, a representation of the journey of awakening as the energy rises through the chakras, unlocking profound levels of self-awareness, wisdom, and enlightenment along the way. This esoteric knowledge, which might seem mysterious or even hidden from mainstream culture, has traditionally been reserved for the most dedicated spiritual seekers. For centuries, it has been kept within the sacred teachings of various religious orders, often cloaked in symbolism and spiritual practices, accessible only to those initiated or worthy of receiving it. A key element of this spiritual journey lies in the map of human consciousness. This map provides a framework that explains the progression of awakening and how one can raise their awareness into higher realms of enlightenment. Many sacred traditions offer symbolic clues that, when understood, reveal deeper insights into the nature of reality and human existence. These clues act as markers, guiding the seeker along the path to spiritual realization. Ancient texts, religious scriptures, and sacred teachings, though often seen as mere historical or moral records, contain profound hidden wisdom. These codes, embedded in these texts, require an open mind and a willingness to explore beyond the surface. One of the most widely known texts containing such hidden wisdom is the Bible, a book many are familiar with but few truly understand at a deeper level. For most, it's considered a literal account of historical events, a collection of stories about the lives of prophets, kings, and saints. However, if one is open to alternative interpretations, the Bible reveals a wealth of mystical knowledge encoded in its verses. The teachings within it can be seen as more than just religious doctrine or moral lessons. They offer a roadmap for those seeking spiritual enlightenment. These hidden teachings are not always immediately obvious and may be obscured by the veil of historical context, but they are present for those willing to delve deeper. For those who are willing to look beyond conventional understanding, the Bible, like many sacred texts, becomes a treasure chest of spiritual tools and teachings. Within its allegorical stories, parables, and symbols, there are lessons about how to awaken the latent potential within us all. The transformation of the self, the raising of spiritual energy, and the unlocking of higher consciousness are themes that run through these ancient texts, revealing an ancient, universal truth. These teachings speak not only to those of a particular faith, but to anyone who is on the path of self-discovery and enlightenment. The journey of spiritual awakening is not bound by any single religion or system of belief. It is a universal quest for understanding the nature of existence, for uncovering the truths that lie hidden within the fabric of reality. Whether through the process of awakening Kundalini, raising the chrism, or decoding the symbolic language of ancient texts, the path is the same. It is the path of inner illumination, of transcending the material world and reaching for higher states of consciousness. By opening ourselves to these deeper understandings, we can tap into a wisdom that has been passed down through the ages, a wisdom that has the power to transform not only our own lives, but also the world around us. As we walk this path of awakening, it is essential to keep an open mind and heart, to question and seek, and to trust the process of self-discovery. The clues are all around us, waiting to be recognized. They may be hidden in plain sight, wrapped in layers of symbolism and metaphor, but they are there for those who are ready to see. The journey is not easy, and it is not always clear, but it is a journey that can lead to a profound understanding of who we truly are and the limitless potential that lies within us. The profound mystery embedded in the phrase "Christ is in you" unveils a sacred secret that reveals the divine essence residing within each of us. This truth defies the conventional understanding of God as something external, separate, or distant, and instead directs us to realize that the temple of God is not confined to a physical structure or location that one must visit. Rather, it is our very bodies, which are the sacred vessels that house the divine presence. In his groundbreaking 1920 work God-Man, The Word Made Flesh, Dr. George W. Carey explored this idea in depth, blending insights from religion, astrology, anatomy, and chemistry. Carey wrote that seed, word, and God are all synonyms of one and the same thing, the wonderful creative substance, the universal S from which all things are brought forth and in which all things are. Here, Carey emphasizes the fundamental connection between the divine, the Word, and creation itself. He points out that this creative force is not an external deity, but an intrinsic power that resides within the very fabric of existence. In the Bible, the Scriptures, with their rich allegories and parables, offer us crucial clues about the nature of the Word of God. These writings provide the clearest understanding of what this Word truly is. They reveal that the Word is not just a collection of written texts, but a living, dynamic force capable of shaping and creating life itself. In these sacred texts, the Word is described as a seed, the cause and nucleus of all things. This seed is the beginning of all creation, echoing the powerful opening verses of the Bible. In the beginning was the Word. John 1:1. This creative essence is not something distant or abstract. It resides within every individual. It is within each person that this divine force, symbolized as Christ, has the potential to awaken and manifest. Christ, in this deeper metaphysical sense, is not just the historical figure born in Bethlehem. Rather, he represents the inherent divine essence within each human being. This Christ consciousness is not confined to one time, place, or individual. It is a universal force embedded in the very nature of humanity. Just as a seed has the potential to sprout, grow, and transform into a fully realized plant, so too does the Christ consciousness within each person undergo a process of awakening, resurrection, and rebirth at the appointed time. This resurrection is not just a spiritual event that happens after death, but a transformative process that occurs within the individual during their lifetime. It is the awakening of the divine potential that lies dormant within, waiting for the right moment to emerge and express itself in full. This teaching suggests that every individual is capable of experiencing their own personal resurrection, a spiritual rebirth in which they reconnect with their true divine nature. Just as a seed needs the right environment and conditions to germinate and grow, the Christ consciousness requires the right spiritual conditions to awaken within a person. This is the essence of spiritual transformation, an inner revolution in which an individual transcends the limitations of the ego and begins to live in harmony with the divine essence within. The appointed time refers to the moment when this spiritual awakening occurs, when the seed of Christ within the person is ready to sprout, leading to a rebirth of the individual's consciousness and a deeper connection with the universal divine energy that permeates all things. In essence, the Christ within is not a foreign force or an external being. It is an integral part of the human experience, embedded in every person's consciousness, waiting to be recognized and nurtured. The scriptures, ancient teachings, and works like Dr. Carey's God-Man all point to this universal truth, that we are not separate from the divine, but that the divine essence is intimately woven into the very fabric of our being. When we understand and embrace this truth, we can begin to see ourselves not as mere mortal beings, but as vessels of divine potential, capable of creating, transforming, and awakening to the infinite possibilities that lie within us. This deeper understanding of the Word as the divine creative essence within each person challenges us to reconsider our place in the universe. We are not powerless in the face of life's challenges. We are not insignificant specks in an indifferent cosmos. Rather, we are the living embodiments of the divine Word and the creative force that birthed the universe, and it is within our power to awaken and align ourselves with this divine energy. As we do so, we not only transform ourselves, but also contribute to the transformation of the world around us. This is the essence of the spiritual journey, to recognize and cultivate the Christ within, to allow this divine essence to rise within us and to become co-creators with the universe, living in harmony with the divine order that permeates all things. Thus, the mystery of Christ is in you invites us into a deeper, more intimate relationship with our own spiritual essence. It calls us to recognize that the potential for divine transformation lies within each one of us, awaiting the moment when we're ready to awaken it. The seed of Christ, planted deep within, is waiting for the right conditions to grow and bring forth the fruits of spiritual rebirth and renewal. This process of awakening is not a distant event, but an ongoing journey, one that each of us must embark upon to fully realize our divine potential. In the chapter titled The Antichrist from the book God-Man, Dr. Carey delves into the fascinating and profound exploration of how the early Christians, particularly the Essenes, understood the spiritual and physical connection between man and the divine. Dr. Carey writes about how these ancient Christians recognized the Christ consciousness not as a distant, separate figure, but as a tangible force within the human body itself. This consciousness, according to the essence, was represented symbolically by a substance, a holy oil or ointment, that flowed throughout the body, especially concentrated in the spinal cord. The early Christians understood the concept of Christ as something inherent in all of humanity, a force that could be accessed and understood through the human body's hidden pathways. The river, flowing from Eden, a central image in many sacred texts, was not seen merely as a geographical river, but symbolized the spinal cord itself. The connection between the brain and the rest of the body was perceived as a sacred flow of energy, nourishing every cell and nerve. This was not just a physical flow, but one that connected humanity with the divine. The spiritual practices of the time, whether based on Hebrew or Greek scriptures, were seen as allegorical in nature. They weren't simply historical or literal accounts, but rather veiled teachings about the human body, its mysteries, and its connection to God. These early Christians, who were adept in mystical traditions, knew that the brain and nervous system were not just organs of physical life, but spiritual instruments capable of connecting man to a higher state of consciousness. The brain, particularly the cerebrum, was viewed as the very source of man's physical and spiritual expression. The secretion of grey matter from the cerebrum was thought to be the creative energy that gave life to the body, and it was this same creative force that allowed individuals to connect with the divine. In this view, the spinal cord was not just a physical structure, it was symbolized as the River Jordan in sacred texts. The entry of the Jordan River into the Dead Sea was seen as a profound symbol of spiritual death and resurrection. The Dead Sea, located at the base of the spine, represented the sacred plexus, the place where the spiritual energy culminated and symbolized the crucifixion of the self. In this context, the term crucifixion takes on a deeper, more mystical meaning. To crucify the body, in this spiritual framework, is not about death in the traditional sense, but about a transmutation, a powerful transformation of the individual. The process of crucifixion, in this view, is one of spiritual ascension, where the energy and life force are raised to higher levels. This ascension occurs after a period of incubation in the cerebellum, the brain's lower part, where the energy remains for 2.5 days, which corresponds to the moon's cycle in a specific astrological sign. After this phase, the spiritual energy rises on the 3rd day, symbolizing resurrection. This rising force ascends through the pineal gland, a tiny but powerful organ often referred to as the third eye, or the seat of the soul. The pineal gland, which connects the cerebellum to the optic thalamus, is described as the central eye, or the throne of God. In this way, the pineal gland represents the spiritual pinnacle of the human body, the place where divine consciousness and human awareness merge. It is the highest chamber of the body, the true temple of the living God. This connection, according to Dr. Carey's interpretation, is not only physical, but metaphysical. The pineal gland, as the symbolic temple summit, is the gateway to spiritual enlightenment. It is where the Holy Ghost, or breath of life, is most concentrated, where the divine enters the human being. In understanding this symbolism, it becomes clear that the early Christians and the Essenes believed that the spiritual journey was deeply embedded within the very architecture of the human body. The body was seen as a vessel, not merely for earthly existence, but for a sacred process of spiritual transformation. The Bible, then, was not just a historical document, but a divine blueprint for understanding the human being's journey from physical death to spiritual resurrection. The real crucifixion is not one of the body, but of the ego and lower self, which must be transcended for the divine light to ascend through the body, ultimately connecting the individual with the highest realms of consciousness. In modern terms, we might look at these ancient teachings as a profound integration of body and spirit, recognizing that the human form is not separate from the divine, but is in fact the very temple through which the divine flows. The ancient Christians, through their allegories and metaphors, were teaching that enlightenment and spiritual resurrection are not just concepts to be believed, but practices that can be experienced through the mastery of one's own physical and spiritual body. This knowledge has the potential to transform how we view ourselves, not as separate from God, but as living expressions of the divine essence that flows through us, from the very base of the spine to the highest point of consciousness in the brain. In exploring the profound connection between spiritual wisdom and the workings of the body, Dr. Carey provides an intriguing perspective on the pineal gland, drawing parallels between ancient sacred texts and modern physiological understanding. In one of his earlier statements, he mentions that the pineal gland is directly referenced in the Bible as Mount Peniel, a place where Jacob wrestled with the angel of the Lord. This biblical encounter, often seen as a metaphor for spiritual awakening or the struggle to transcend the material world, becomes deeply symbolic when understood in the context of Dr. Carey's interpretation. The word pineal, derived from the Latin word pinea, meaning pine cone, is linked by Dr. Carey to the concept of the face of God, suggesting that this small but powerful gland serves as a direct conduit to the divine. He asserts that the pineal gland, with its resemblance to an eye, occupies the top of the human form, and thus could be considered the eye of the soul, aligning with the idea of it being the face of God. This eye, according to Dr. Carey, is not a mere physical organ but a gateway to a higher realm of consciousness and spiritual perception. Dr. Carey's thoughts on the pineal gland extend into the realm of metaphysics when he introduces the concept of activation through spiritual processes. He writes about a mysterious fluid or essence that flows down the spinal cord, originating from the upper brain, and which he connects to the Creator or Father, the Most High. In physiological terms, this fluid is known as the ovum, or generative seed, which is responsible for creating the human form of corruptible flesh. Yet Dr. Carey goes beyond a simple biological explanation by drawing a spiritual parallel. The substance he refers to as the generative seed is also recognized in Greek as Christos, the term from which the English word Christ is derived. In the context of the New Testament, this oil is not just a physical substance, but a spiritual force, representing the divine essence that gives life and meaning to human existence. When this generative oil or marrow is refined or transmuted, Dr. Carey explains, it reaches a heightened level of vitality. This refinement is not merely a physiological process, but a spiritual one, an alchemical transformation that elevates the soul and the body. Through this process, the oil or Christ is transmuted into a higher, more refined essence capable of regenerating the body, revitalizing the mind, and overcoming the greatest challenge of the human experience, death itself. The process of overcoming death, according to Dr. Carey, is a spiritual and physiological union. The lifting up of this sacred essence, this divine oil, back up the spinal cord to the brain, a process symbolically referred to as the lifting up of the Son of Man. This concept of lifting up the Son of Man is deeply rooted in Christian esoteric traditions, where the Son of Man is often seen as a symbol of the divine potential within each individual. In this context, the seed or word, often referring to Christ within the human body, is not just a physical entity, but a spiritual essence that, when nurtured and cultivated, can transcend mortality and bring about spiritual enlightenment. Dr. Carey explains that this oil, this Christ consciousness, is the salt referenced in the Bible, an essential transformative substance that purifies and regenerates the human form. This salt symbolizes the purification of the soul, and its connection to Christ as both the seed and the Saviour emphasizes the importance of spiritual awakening. In a broader sense, Dr. Carey's exploration of the pineal gland and the transmutation of the oil parallels the ancient spiritual practices of awakening and illumination. Just as alchemists sought to refine base materials into gold, so too do individuals striving for spiritual enlightenment seek to transmute the mundane into the divine. The pineal gland, as the seat of higher consciousness, plays a central role in this process, acting as a spiritual eye that enables the individual to see beyond the physical realm and connect with the divine. Through this inner transformation, Dr. Carey suggests that the ultimate victory over the last enemy, death itself, becomes possible not through external means, but through an internal awakening that lifts the individual into higher states of consciousness and spiritual realization. The concept presented in the passage you've provided delves into esoteric and spiritual interpretations of the human body, specifically relating to the pineal and pituitary glands, and draws connections to biblical allegory and the law of attraction. Let's expand on these ideas and their deeper implications, exploring how these mystical teachings relate to human development, consciousness, and the secrets of the universe. In the realms of both spirituality and metaphysics, the pineal gland has long been considered a sacred organ, often referred to as the third eye. This small pinecone-shaped gland in the brain has been believed to be the seat of higher consciousness, the connection point between the physical world and the spiritual realms. The Bible, through its allegories and metaphors, speaks of this hidden wisdom, and in the context of the passage you've shared, it suggests that this sacred secret, the powerful transformation that happens to the pineal gland every 29.5 days, is deeply tied to our spiritual growth and evolution. The law of attraction, which is often defined as the principle that like attracts like, can be understood on a deeper level through the lens of these sacred fluids secreted by the pineal and pituitary glands. Both glands are considered labs of spiritual creation as they process and refine the fluids that come from the colostrum, a term that has ancient connotations of both nourishment and secrecy. In the physiological sense, colostrum refers to the first form of milk produced by mammals after birth, rich in antibodies that provide vital nutrients. Metaphorically, it represents the initial spark of life, the creative essence that nourishes our spiritual and physical existence. In this view, the fluids produced by the pineal and pituitary glands, referred to in the passage as golden and milk-like, serve as sacred substances that support our spiritual and physical health. The yellow fluid, secreted by the pineal gland, is described as having electric properties, symbolizing vitality, clarity, and higher awareness. It is a fluid that aligns with the power of the sun and the solar plexus, which is often referred to as the solar center of the body, our internal power source. On the other hand, the white, milk-like fluid from the pituitary is magnetic, signifying the ability to attract and draw energies toward us, in perfect harmony with the law of attraction. These fluids, one electric and the other magnetic, are viewed as male and female energies, the Joseph and Mary of the body. The union of these two forms of energy creates the spiritual sun, a symbol of enlightenment, consciousness, and spiritual awakening. This creation mirrors the biblical story of Jesus' birth, where the spiritual child, representing higher consciousness, is born through the union of the divine masculine and divine feminine energies. The journey of spiritual awakening is not an external process, but an internal one, with each of us carrying this sacred secret within. The Bethlehem of the body is the solar plexus, the area often associated with personal power, transformation, and the birth of new consciousness. When the fluids reach this center, it symbolizes the manifestation of spiritual awareness, where the individual begins to tap into their true potential and align with higher realms of existence. This process, described as happening every 29.5 days, likely refers to the cycles of transformation and evolution that occur within the body, aligning with natural rhythms and cosmic forces. Just as the moon goes through its phases in a similar cycle, so too does the body go through its own spiritual rebirths. Each cycle brings us closer to the realization of our divine nature, connecting us to the universal consciousness, the Father of all, as referenced in the passage. Just as Jesus, the seed of the Father, is born anew through the union of Joseph and Mary, so too does the individual experience rebirth through the union of the electric and magnetic forces within the body. Then the heavens will roll together as a scroll and reveal the real man as the Lamb of God that taketh away the sins of the world. This is a powerful reminder that we are not separate from the divine. We are, in fact, an embodiment of it. When we turn our focus inward, we can tap into this boundless energy, realizing that we are not merely human beings, but manifestations of the infinite cosmic forces. This realization is the key to unlocking our true potential and experiencing the profound miracle of spiritual rebirth. What's most important is that this isn't some distant dream or unattainable goal. It's a process that can happen now, in this very moment, if we are willing to embrace the spiritual truth within us. The journey of transformation, resurrection, and rebirth is always available to those who choose to awaken to it. It is not just a story. It is an invitation to live a new life, one of deep spiritual awareness, empowerment, and divine connection. The Christ within is waiting to be awakened. When we do, we too can experience the eternal light and love that flows through all creation.